Hey guys, I got a cool one for y'all today. We're going to give a sample lesson from Myoplasmic on PEDs, a little Q&A. And this is one lesson from the new Myoplasmic site. Then we're going to walk through all the content that's available there so you guys can check it out. I don't want to waste too much of your time. I know a lot of you are probably just here for the Q&A, and that's totally fine. So let's get into it.
As far as like what you said with strength, look at the all-time world record tested versus the all-time world record untested. Obviously, the untested is higher, but that's aside from just being it's untested. That's where all the elite people are going to go towards. There just aren't that many people devoting their life to a sport who aren't going to take that next step with gear. But even considering all that, there isn't that huge of a difference. You know, some of the tested lifts are pretty darn close to the untested top lifts. As far as favorite cycles, mine, and I recommend this all the time. I like test. Mine was always test and EQ. For my entire bodybuilding career, the only thing I ever ran in the off season was test and EQ, and it was always early on. It was like a gram of test and 800 milligrams of EQ. At my peak, it ended up somewhere around 1,200 milligrams of test a week and a gram of EQ a week. Since this was 15 years ago. This is a little before China being involved, and so it was harder to get a lot of the compounds. In more recent years, I've changed that approach to what I tend to recommend is test and primobolan. And I think, because primobolan is just so purely anabolic, I think for muscle growth purposes, a good test base backed with primobolan in about 800 to 1,000 milligrams a week range is about as perfect as you can get as a bodybuilder. And when I say as a bodybuilder, you want to continue to get stronger so you can create the training stimulus to build growth, but you want as much anabolism as possible. And that's it, simple, 2 compounds. One test, second one's an anabolic. And I even recommend this to clients. Start with test, and then based on your size, somewhere in this range, and then pick your favorite anabolic. Now, slowly build up, and then when you're at your max size, you're going to probably somewhere in the range of over 2 grams of total gear a week. Now, contest prep's totally different, and everyone's different, and you throw the kitchen sink at things, but in the off-season, that's as simple as it is.
To tack onto this, what's your favorite single compound? If you can only remember.
Test. Well, maybe EQ, but I would never run EQ without test.
Right.
But EQ for me, I seem to be very unique in that. I met a couple people who really like EQ. I know a couple top people in bodybuilding and powerlifting. A lot of people seem to not like it. I think for me, I have naturally low red blood cell count. I never get really high red blood cell count. I just loved it. I felt like no side effects, never felt like I was on anything. No major bloating, any bloating was from the test. My appetite was sky high. It just felt great. And so it was like, it was a no-brainer for me. And my blood work was always good. If anything, my blood work was better because my hemoglobin would be right down the middle rather than on the low end of normal. And so for me, it was EQ. And people always kind of like seem surprised by that, but that was just my go-to.
Mine is Anavar, but I also like having money in my bank account, being able to pay rent. So, and if you want to run that at doses that are going to be effective for a large male, then you're probably going to have to pay quite a bit. So, yeah, unfortunately.
What are your doses for that?
I make gains off Anavar at 40 milligrams a day. I'm prescribed 50 by my doctor, but if I buy through the doctor, it's $300 a month, which.
I know one really famous top bodybuilder who was a big fan of Anavar and would run pretty high.
If I could afford it, I'd do 100 mgs for 8 to 12 weeks on end because it treats me. 0 side effects, insane. Like the pumps, the tightness, the growth, all of it. Oh, I love Anavar, but it's pricey.
Yeah, that was EQ for me. The 3D muscle. What kind of exercises and what creates a 3D muscle?
I don't know this. Justin was just telling me.
Yeah, I don't think it's an exercise. Something just happens. And I think if you look at Ben's pictures and his videos on Instagram, he's starting to get that. There's kind of a few phases people go through. There's the D-train look, someone who doesn't work out at all. Then there's a guy who's like, he works out, he looks like an athletic guy, and you can tell he goes to the gym. And then you start getting into your bro guys, and they clearly work out, and they clearly are serious about it, but they don't look like bodybuilders or top bodybuilders. And they might even weigh as much. There's plenty of 250-pound bros who don't look like Phil Heath. I mean, that's just the way it is. Then there's something that happens, and it's where your weight continues to climb, but it's kind of not directly proportional to the weight. There's something that just happens and you start getting this three-dimensional look. And I don't think anyone knows really. I don't think there's anything you can pinpoint. It's when everything's clicking, and you don't get this by luck. This is when you are 100% with the diet, and people don't get that. They think, well, I eat good. I eat 6 times a day, or I eat meat. It's like like if you hear Ben talk about his meals, he knows exactly. He's talking about different sprouts, different forms of cereals, and the carbohydrates in a cereal, and why he chooses it at this time or that time. And he could probably tell you what he ate for meal 3 on March 4th last year. When you're at that level and everything is your whole life kind of is devoted to this one purpose, that's when it starts happening. And I don't think there's really a method you can train for. I'm sure there's some blood volume aspect involved, but it's really just when you've put enough years of 100% focus in, and something just starts to happen. And it's really cool when you see it happening with someone. This one's going to be all you. Hook grip versus mixed for deadlift.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is actually a question that I do really like, because I've gone through this debate myself over and back and forth, and yuck. So I think a lot of people worry about mixed grip because of the risk of tearing a bicep. I think unless you are pulling with poor form, by which I mean, putting too much strain on the arm, letting the elbows bend, doing some type of shrug at the top, I think the risks of tearing deadlift are fairly low for most people. All right, once you're getting in the range where you're pulling 600, 700, 800 pounds, then it's arguable. But for most people, you're not at that level, and I wouldn't worry about it at all. And personally, I have not ever had any bicep issues at all on deadlift. I tore my bicep trying to flip a 1,000-pound tire with terrible technique. So I think that that fear is a little bit overstated. I'm not saying it's not a valid fear. I just think it's a little bit overstated for most people. That out of the way, I definitely think that there are mechanical advantages to hook grip in terms of pulling with a symmetric form. And this applies to both bodybuilders and powerlifters, although bodybuilders, I feel like, just use straps and don't fucking worry about it. For powerlifters, I feel like being able to have your arms in a symmetrical position is very beneficial because you can lock your lats down a lot better. For me, this makes a world of difference, and it allows me to keep the bar path significantly straighter than if I have to use a mixed grip. Because with the mixed grip, when you're supinating one arm, pronating the other arm, not only do you have a little bit of twisting of the bar going on, right? A little windmilling. Most people have that problem to one degree or another. In addition to that, usually you have to sit back a little bit more on your heels to compensate for that, imbalance that you have. And for me, especially because I'm a fairly quad dominant lifter, that's disadvantageous. And I feel like most people, that's probably going to be the case. However, the downside of hook grip is, in my experience, you can't strengthen it. It is what it is, right? It's all about the position and the friction that you're able to create. So if you are, let's say you can hook grip 400 pounds, and no matter what you do, 500 doesn't seem to hold, it just slips out, right? I think you're screwed. I think you got to go with mixed grip. For me, it's the mid 700s. My hook grip just is not consistent, and sometimes I'll be able to nail that position perfectly, and then maybe I can hit 815, but my grips always start slipping around that range. It's so frustrating because even when I do get the perfect position, it's still only good up to the low 800s. Whereas I've done rack pulls, mixed grip with high 8s with no problem. Grip's not slipping at all. And you can strengthen that as well. There's lots and lots of different ways to strengthen your mixed grip. I have not found any to strengthen hook grip. So I think this is one of those areas where the trade-off is very clear. You see how much you can hook grip. If your hook grip is rock solid because you have giant ass hands and you find the right position, pull hook grip 100%. If you find that your shit's slipping, sub-max reps or sub-max weight, you got to pull mix. You're going to struggle with hook grip, and it's going to be frustrating as hell. So that's my take on it.
I have a take.
Yeah.
Another deadlift, conventional versus sumo, and I don't think they said beyond that. I think they were wondering what's the difference or what benefits.
Well, I mean, in terms of,
it's going to be 2 different answers.
Yeah, I'll do powerlifting, I guess. In terms of strength, again, it's going to depend on your leverages. Not everybody is built to pull sumo, and I strongly recommend against trying to shove yourself into a sumo stance if it doesn't work for you. Obviously, if you're trying to switch stances, start low, take your time, give it a fair shot. But sumo is not necessarily more efficient. I think you see a lot of guys who have perfect leverages for sumo who are able to minimize that bar pass so much, and people think, oh, I got to pull sumo if I want to pull the most, but it's not true for everyone. So I would just say find what works for your leverages and stick with that one. So give both a fair shot. Whichever one feels better, stick with that. Train both, because I feel like they're very complementary. But in terms of pulling competition, yeah, just go by leverages.
I think if as a bodybuilder, if you're doing deadlifts, it's going to be for back basically. I mean, there are leg deadlifts, but in that case, it's a different motion. If you're training deadlifts for back, I think conventional is the most effective, and the reasoning is to pull the most weight. Deadlifts are awesome because all you have to worry about is lifting more weight. You don't have to worry about working the muscle unless you're trying to target your lats. But if you're working about thickening up at the mid back, just get stronger in a deadlift, because the form that allows you to move the most weight in deadlift is the one that forces you to use the muscles of the mid back the most, because those are the strongest muscles. If you play switching the emphasis to your hamstrings, you're going to use less weight because they're a weaker mover in the movement. So I think as a bodybuilder, that's a no-brainer. You get stronger in a deadlift, you're going to have bigger traps, you're going to have a bigger mid back. Now, if you're trying to use the deadlift for different purposes, for hitting the lats or for hitting the hamstrings or things like that, then there's more variables. But as far as if you're treating the deadlift because I want a thick back, I want big traps, conventional, get stronger, boom, that's it. Someone wanted to know how to create a leg pump with compound movements. I don't know how. Well, I think I might know where they're talking about. The problem, if you're doing compound movements in a bodybuilding rep range and a bodybuilding rest period, there's no way to avoid a leg pump, I think. The problem is I see a lot of people training things like squats, and I see this all the time, and I talk about this all the time when I say making a muscle stronger versus making a movement stronger. It's people have no problem doing sets of 15 on triceps, sets of 15 or 20 on biceps, or sets of 10 for anything. You never see someone do lateral raises for sets of 4, But for some reason, and this is bench too, for some reason on squat and bench, especially young guys who are probably already in a position where they're not targeting the muscle well because they're just not strong enough and don't have enough years in the game, doing sets of 4 or 5 on squat with 10-minute rests in between isn't going to give you a leg pump. Now, you can do a set of 20 on squats with a narrow stance. You're going to have a leg pump whether you want it or not. I mean, I guess that you might have more detail than that.
No, I think you guys probably saw the weird look Justin and I gave to each other, and it's because it's like, to me, it seems kind of obvious. Do more reps, add more weight to the bar. Like, unless you have god awful technique, I don't see how you're going to avoid a leg pump.
Awful cardio, or mental fortitude. Sets of 20 on squats are not. That's real work. That's not getting a bicep pump. That's not getting a good chest pump. I think you're so deep in the game that you forgot.
Yeah, I must because I feel like, shoot, man, even if you're doing 20s with 135, you're gonna get a pump. But yeah,
well, even it's hard. I mean, that's harder than curls. And a lot of people, especially if you didn't grow up as an athlete or grow up learning what real workload is. And because everyone thinks they work hard until they train with someone who does work hard, and sometimes you just got to learn that the hard way. I think everyone when they started out maybe thought they were training hard, met a new training partner and realized, oh shit, I wasn't training hard. Yeah. And you'll learn that. I've learned that just the last couple of days with Ben too. So you'll learn that forever.
I'll take that as a compliment. I'll pause once more. These files get so big. How to navigate Myoplasmic and show you guys some of the information that's available there. So we're going to bring up the preview. This is how it looks after you've logged in to Myoplasmic, the members portal. You're going to have a list of the course curriculum, and you can see all the different lectures. I highly suggest that you start by checking out these first 3 in the Start Here section. These will help you in more detail learn how to navigate the members portal. You can actually access these for free, even if you're not a member, from the Myoplasmic main page. You can also ask to join the Myoplasmic members group and submit your questions for me and Justin to answer. Then we have the Myo exclusive program for January. The program includes diet and training. So you can go through these and you can download this information. This will change every month. So coming next month, we're going to be launching our newest program, the Myoplasmic Growth Protocol Phase 1, which will introduce you guys to our power building strategy that we highly recommend for probably 90+% of people, including myself. This is a protocol that I am following and that I've used to grow from 184 stage weight to my current weight of about 244. We've got the Death Wish Challenge workouts, which you guys already know about. And then we move on to some other resources that are here for you guys to learn from. And I think this is where a lot of the value from Myoplasmic comes in that a lot of people aren't aware of, okay? So we have, and this is going to be, we add to this on a regular basis, maybe not daily, but at least weekly. And as you'll see as I go through this, there's a lot of content already up there. So we have the movement tutorial section. Training resources is going to be information related to improving your training. Nutrition resources, information related to improving your diet. When you look at these, if it has a play thing, there's a video involved as well. If it's just text or if it has files, that's indicated as well. So we've got some really cool topics here: carb cycling, right? Over-the-counter supplements, cardio, performance enhancement. I think this is an area where a lot of people are going to be interested. How we would recommend going through PCT, finding the best compounds, using insulin, all these different sorts of lectures. The weekly Q&A, we've actually been doing this daily. We have a ton of questions and answers from people who have already joined Myoplasmic. We've had some really great dialogue going on. And I think this is a very valuable place for you to get input directly from Justin and I. Then we get to the really cool part. We have some case studies. So we've got building a metabolic monster. This is Justin's take on reverse dieting. And how you can actually improve your metabolism so that you can eat more without gaining weight. That's pretty freaking awesome. We have our training logs. Pro card winning prep. This is the individual who is training with Justin. He's going to be named anonymous. But this individual is now a top Olympia competitor. And this is how Justin helped him to earn his pro card. The exact adjustments they made during off-season and contest prep. We have ebooks that you can download. Project Super Heavyweight. This is a full-length DVD that Justin did with Steve Kuklo, another Mr. Olympia competitor. That was when they were working with Dante Trudell and using the dog crap method of training. This is actually what got me into power building way back in the day. More information on contest prep, an example of training legs every other day, and experiment in pain. And we're going to continue to add to this. So there's going to be a lot more information as the site develops and as the months go by. I really think that the Myoplasmic Growth Protocol is going to blow you all out of the water. It is by far the hardest program that I've ever done, and the results have been extraordinary. So I highly encourage you guys to check out Myoplasmic, even if it's just for a month. I strongly believe this is the best resource for powerlifting out there, and I really think that if you give it a try, you'll be hooked. Because honestly, I am learning more from this than I ever thought possible. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you learned something, and I will see you next time. Until then, think strong and train hard.